Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving deep into one of the most misunderstood, most controversial, and honestly most fascinating figures in all of history, Niccolò Machiavelli, the guy whose name became synonymous with backstabbing, deception, and ruthless power. But is that really fair? Was he actually a monster? Or was he just a realist who loved his city so much he was willing to say the ugly truths no one else dared to? Stick around, because by the end of this video, you're going to see Machiavelli in a completely new light. Let's go! Niccolò Machiavelli was born on May 3, 1469, right in the heart of Florence, Italy. His dad, Bernardo Machiavelli, was a trained lawyer with a serious love for ancient Greek and Roman books. But here's the twist. Bernardo had fallen out with the Medici family, the super-rich bankers who basically owned Florence, and he also owed a ton of back taxes. Because of that, he was banned from practicing law. So the family survived mostly from income from a small country farm. Not exactly the glamorous life you'd expect for the future father of modern politics. Worse still, Florentine law said sons of debtors couldn't hold public office, and if the debts weren't paid, they couldn't even inherit properly. So from day one, little Niccolò was starting life with a massive handicap. His mom, Bartolomea, was unusual for the time. She came from a wealthy family, got a proper education, rare for girls back then, and after her first husband died, she married Bernardo. She had 4 kids with him, ran her own small business deals on the side, played music, read, and even wrote poetry. Pretty impressive for 15th century Italy. The Machiavelli family lived in a big old house near the Arno River, the so-called Palazzo Machiavelli, shared among 4 branches of the family, about 30 people total. Cramped, yes, but they were an old, respected clan. Lawyers, bankers, merchants, the professional elite of Florence. Niccolò would follow in those footsteps and then completely outshine everyone else in the family by becoming the most famous and infamous Machiavelli ever. Florence in the late 1400s was the beating heart of the Renaissance. Art, science, literature, everything was exploding. The city was technically a republic, but in reality, the Medici family pulled every string using their massive banking fortune. They didn't need official titles. Their money bought them control. In December 1469, the same year Niccolò was born, 20-year-old Lorenzo de' Medici took over as the unofficial ruler of Florence. Everyone called him Lorenzo the Magnificent. Under him, the city became the undisputed cultural capital of Europe. Think Brunelleschi's incredible dome on the cathedral, Botticelli's paintings, Michelangelo's sculptures, all happening right around Machiavelli as he grew up. Bernardo wanted his son to have a top-tier classical education so he could become a lawyer, diplomat, or church official. Niccolò started learning Latin at age 7, studied with private tutors, and later attended university lectures on Cicero, Virgil, Livy, the big Roman classics. He learned rhetoric, translation, and how to write letters in perfect Ciceronian style. All of it was designed to prepare him for a career in government. But life kept throwing curveballs. In 1478, a failed plot to kill Lorenzo sparked war with the Pope. Bernardo's farm income tanked. Then the plague hit Florence in 1479. Niccolò was shipped off to the countryside for safety while his dad stayed behind and somehow survived the plague himself. By the early 1480s, Niccolò was back in lessons, arithmetic, then grammar and literature with a priest named Paolo Sassi. He devoured the classics, learned to imitate the great Roman writers, and studied real-world political and moral dilemmas straight out of Livy and Cicero. Around age 16, 18, he attended university lectures given by the best scholars in Florence. He was brilliant, and he knew it. He started writing poetry to impress the Medici, hoping to win their favor. But history had other plans. In 1492, Lorenzo the Magnificent died. His son Piero took over, and he was terrible. When the French king Charles VIII invaded Italy in 1494, Piero panicked and surrendered without even asking the city government. The furious Florentines kicked him out, and suddenly a fiery Dominican priest named Girolamo Savonarola seized control. He preached that the French invasion was God's punishment for Florence's sins. People burned books, paintings, jewelry, everything luxurious in huge bonfires of vanities. Savonarola hated classical learning and called it sinful. But a new professor at the university, Marcello Adrani, openly taught that the wisdom of the ancients could save the Republic. Niccolò became his student and his friend. By 1498, Savonarola's power was crumbling. The Pope excommunicated him, the Signoria, or Florence's ruling council, arrested him, and on May 23, 1498, they hanged him in the main square. The city needed a new second chancellor, basically the deputy head of government. On June 19, 29-year-old Niccolò Machiavelli got the job. Overnight, he went from nobody to one of the most powerful officials in Florence. His timing was brutal. Florence is broke, at war with Pisa, threatened by Venice, and totally dependent on an unreliable French alliance. Machiavelli spent the next 14 years as Florence's top diplomat and military organizer. He negotiated with mercenary captains, kings, popes, and warlords. He met Cesare Borgia, the ruthless son of Pope Alexander VI, watched him conquer cities, betray allies, and then crush a rebellion by executing all his own mercenary captains in one night. Machiavelli was stunned and impressed. He went on mission after mission, to France, to the Romagna, to Rome. He saw how power really worked, not in books, but in blood, money, and betrayal. And he hated mercenaries. They were expensive, unreliable, and often switched sides mid-battle. So he convinced the government to create a citizen militia, real Florentine soldiers loyal to the city, not to gold. He personally recruited and trained thousands of men. In 1509, that militia helped finally recapture Pisa after a 15-year war. It was Machiavelli's greatest practical success. But everything changed in 2012. The French were kicked out of Italy. The Medici returned with papal backing. The Republic collapsed. Machiavelli was fired on November 11, 2012. A few months later, in February 2013, he was arrested for suspicion of plotting against the Medici, tortured, thrown in a cell, eventually released, but only after the new Medici Pope, Leo X, declared a general amnesty. At 44 years old, Machiavelli's career was over. Broke, humiliated, and exiled to his family farm in the countryside, he did what any of us would do. He started writing, and what he wrote changed the world. First came The Prince, a short, brutal book about how a new ruler can seize and keep power. He used Cesare Borgia as his main example, a man who lied, betrayed, killed, and still built a state. Machiavelli's core message: in politics, being good all the time gets you destroyed. A ruler must be both lion and fox, fierce when necessary, cunning when necessary. It's better to be feared than loved, if you can't be both. He wasn't saying be evil. He was saying if you want to survive in a world full of lions, you have to learn how to roar. Then came the Discourses on Livy, a huge work praising the Roman Republic. Here, Machiavelli revealed his true love, a strong, free republic where citizens participate, laws are respected, and the common good comes first. He hated tyranny. He believed liberty and prosperity only happen when people are equal under the law and willing to defend their city. He also wrote brilliant comedies like Mandragola, still performed today, love poems, and hundreds of hilarious gossipy letters to his best friend Francesco Vettori. In 1520, the Medici gave him a small job: write a history of Florence. He turned it into a masterpiece, honest, critical, and full of lessons for rulers. He even proposed constitutional reforms to make Florence more republican while keeping the Medici in power. They listened, but never fully acted. In 1927, the Medici were thrown out again. The Republic came back. Machiavelli hoped he'd be rehired. Instead, his old enemies remembered he'd worked for the Medici. They blacklisted him. Heartbroken and sick, he died on June 21, 1927, at age 58. He's buried in Santa Croce, Florence, near Michelangelo and Galileo. So, was Machiavelli evil? A cynic who taught tyrants how to crush people? Or a patriot who loved Florence so much he told the brutal truth about power so the city could survive? What do you think? Is Machiavelli a villain who deserves his dark reputation, or a misunderstood genius who gave us the tools to understand politics as it really is? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. And if you enjoyed this deep dive, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a video like this. Thanks for watching, and remember, in politics, as Machiavelli taught us, you don't get to choose the world you live in, but you can choose how to survive it. See you in the next one.